The shields around Vellum Prime flickered like a dying candle. High Counselor Mariva stood at the observation window of her command center, watching the enemy ships circle her world like hungry predators. 6 months. For 6 long months, the Krath Dominion had surrounded her planet, cutting off all supply lines, all hope, all chance of survival. 3 billion souls lived on the surface below. 3 billion gentle beings who had never known war, who had built their civilization on art and science and the simple joy of existence. Now they waited to die. Mariva was tall and slender, with iridescent scales that shifted between blue and silver depending on the light. Her 4 eyes, large and luminous, reflected the glow of enemy weapons' fire in the distance. She had lived for 200 years, long even by Volanti standards, and she had never felt fear like this. "High Counselor," said her aide, a young male named Tovan, "the shield generators are failing. We have perhaps 3 days before complete collapse." Mariva did not turn from the window. "And our fleet?" "Destroyed. The last cruiser fell this morning." She closed all 4 of her eyes. The Volanti Collective had once been 7 species united in peace. They had traded and explored and built wonders across 100 star systems. They had believed the galaxy was a place of beauty, a canvas for cooperation. Then the Krath came. The Dominion was an empire of insectoid conquerors. They did not negotiate. They did not trade. They consumed. 63 species had fallen before their advance, their populations enslaved or exterminated. Now the Volanti would join them. Unless Mem turned from the window and walked to the center of the command chamber. There, beneath a glass case, sat an object that had not been touched in 10,000 years. It was small, no larger than her palm, a device of black metal covered in symbols that no living being could read. The precursor beacon. "High Counselor," Tovan said, his voice trembling, "you cannot mean to activate it. I see no alternative. The legends say it will summon something. Something from beyond known space. We have no idea what might answer." Mariva looked at her aide with eyes that held exhaustion and determination in equal measure. "The Krath will kill us all. Whatever answers this beacon cannot be worse than extinction." She lifted the glass case and took the device in her hands. It was warm, impossibly warm, as if it contained a tiny star. The symbols on its surface began to glow. "Forgive me," she whispered, though she did not know to whom she spoke. She pressed the activation sequence. The beacon pulsed once, twice, 3 times. Then a wave of energy erupted from it, passing through the walls, through the shields, through the Krath fleet itself. It expanded outward at speeds that defied physics, carrying a simple message encoded in mathematics universal to any intelligent species. "Help us. We are dying. Please help us." The wave traveled through empty space. It passed dead worlds and dying stars. It moved through the territory of species too weak to answer, too afraid to care. It crossed 400 light-years in a matter of hours, slowing only when it reached the edge of an unremarkable star system. The system was called So. Lieutenant Commander Amy Brennan was on patrol duty when her sensors detected the signal. She was 34 years old, with short brown hair and tired eyes that came from too many long shifts. Her ship, the Resolute, was a small patrol vessel assigned to the outer markers of human space. "What the hell is that?" she muttered, staring at her display. The signal was unlike anything in human records. It was clearly artificial, clearly intentional, and clearly desperate. Her translation software worked for several minutes before producing a result. Amy read the translation twice. Then she opened a priority channel to Earth. Admiral Jack Holloway received the message in his office at Fleet Headquarters in Houston. He was 63 years old, with gray hair cut short and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. He had served in 3 wars, commanded ships in 2, and buried more friends than he cared to remember. His aide, a young officer named Lieutenant Chris Webb, stood at attention while the Admiral read. 400 light years, Holloway said quietly. That's deep. Real deep. Yes, sir. Third Fleet is closest. 47 ships under Commander Sawyer. And the enemy force? Webb hesitated. The signal includes censored data. We're looking at over 2,000 hostile vessels, sir. Holloway leaned back in his chair. 47 ships against 2,000. The math was simple. The math said they would lose, but Jack Holloway had never been good at math. He thought about Earth. He thought about the ice ages that had nearly frozen humanity into extinction. He thought about the plagues that had killed half the population of entire continents. He thought about the predators that had hunted human ancestors across the African plains, and the way those ancestors had learned to hunt back. He thought about the wars. The terrible, bloody wars that humans had fought against each other, again and again, century after century. He thought about how they had survived all of it, how they had taken a world that was trying to kill them and made it their home. Humanity had not survived by playing it safe. Humanity had survived by fighting. Send the order, Holloway said. Third Fleet is to move out immediately. Full combat readiness. Webb's eyes widened. Sir, the odds are. I know what the odds are, Lieutenant. Send the order. Yes, sir. Webb left to transmit the message. Holloway remained at his desk, staring at the translated distress signal. Somewhere out there, 400 light years away, an alien species was dying. They had sent out a cry for help, hoping someone would hear. Someone had. Holloway opened a drawer and pulled out a bottle of whiskey he kept for special occasions. He poured himself a small glass and raised it toward the window, toward the stars he could not see through the Houston smog. Hold on, he said quietly. We're coming. On Vellum Prime, High Counselor Mariva waited. The beacon had gone dark after transmitting its signal. She had no way of knowing if anyone had heard, no way of knowing if anyone would answer. Tovin approached her carefully. High Counselor, the Krath are demanding our surrender again. Tell them nothing. They say they will begin bombardment in 72 hours if we do not comply. Mariva looked at the beacon in her hands, now cold and silent. She thought about the 3 billion lives depending on her decision. She thought about the legends that warned against summoning the unknown. We wait, she said. We wait and we hope. She did not know what she was hoping for. She did not know what kind of beings might answer a call from across the stars. She only knew that the alternative was death. In the darkness between stars, Third Fleet was already moving. Commander Ben Sawyer stood on the bridge of the heavy cruiser Defiance and watched the stars stretch into lines. The ship was traveling faster than light, bending the laws of physics in ways that still made scientists nervous. Around him, 46 other vessels followed in tight formation, their crews preparing for what might be a one-way trip. Ben was 41 years old, with broad shoulders and calm brown eyes that rarely showed what he was thinking. He had served in the Terran Defense Fleet for 20 years, starting as a simple engineer and working his way up through skill and stubborn determination. He had never lost a ship. He had never lost a battle. He was not planning to start now. Time to arrival? He asked. Lieutenant Commander Diane Greer checked her console. She was his executive officer, a sharp-featured woman of 38, whose ability to keep crews functioning under pressure had become legendary. 18 hours, Commander. The fleet is maintaining formation. Ben nodded. He had spent the journey studying the intelligence they had received with the distress signal. The Krath Dominion was an empire built on conquest. Their ships were large and heavily armored, organic-looking vessels covered in natural chitin. Their warriors were 3 meters tall, armed with bladed limbs that could cut through steel. They had conquered 63 species. They had never been defeated. Ben was not impressed. "All hands," he said into the ship-wide communication system. "This is Commander Sawyer. In 18 hours, we will arrive at Vellum Prime. We will be facing a numerically superior enemy. We will be outgunned and outnumbered. I want every single one of you to remember something." He paused, letting the silence build. "We are human. We come from Earth. Our ancestors survived ice ages and plagues and predators that would give these Krath nightmares. We learned to fight before we learned to write. We tamed wolves and rode horses and split the atom. We are the most dangerous species our planet ever produced. And our planet was trying to kill us for 4 billion years." He could feel the crew listening, could feel their fear transforming into something harder. Those people on Vellum Prime called for help. We answered. That's what we do. That's who we are. So when we drop out of faster-than-light travel and those Krath bastards see our ships, I want them to understand one thing. They made a mistake. They attacked someone under our protection. He smiled. And it was not a friendly smile. Let's show them what that means. 18 hours later, Third Fleet arrived at the edge of the Vellum system. High Counselor Mariva was in her command center when the sensors detected the newcomers. She had not slept in 2 days. Her scales had faded to a dull gray, a sign of extreme stress in her species. The Krath had begun their bombardment countdown. She had 41 hours left. "High Counselor," Tovin said, his voice strange. "Ships are arriving. Unknown configuration." Mariva moved to the sensor display. She expected perhaps a single vessel, maybe 2. A scout ship answering the beacon out of curiosity. Instead, she saw 47 contacts emerging from faster-than-light travel, their drives flaring like small suns. 47 ships, Tovin whispered. "Who are they?" The translation matrix worked on the incoming signals. When the result appeared, Mariva felt her heart stop beating for a moment. "They are broadcasting in a language identified as originating from a Class 12 death world," the sensor operator said. "Planet designation, Earth. Species designation, human." The command center went silent. Mariva knew about death worlds. Every species in the galaxy knew about death worlds. They were planets of nightmare, places where gravity crushed bones, where the atmosphere burned lungs, where every living thing evolved to kill. No species from a death world had ever achieved spaceflight. The conditions were too harsh. The odds were too impossible. And yet here they were. An incoming communication request appeared on her console. Mariva's hands trembled as she accepted it. The face that appeared on her screen was unlike anything she had seen before. Flat features, 2 small eyes, skin in a shade of brown that reminded her of tree bark. The being wore a uniform of dark blue, and its expression was calm, almost gentle. "This is Commander Ben Sawyer of the Terran Defense Fleet," the creature said. "We received your distress signal. We're here to help." Mariva tried to speak, but no words came. This being, this impossible creature from a world of death, had crossed 400 light years to answer her call. She did not understand why. You came," she finally managed. "You actually came." Commander Sawyer nodded. "That's what the signal was for, wasn't it? Calling for help?" "Yes, but there are over 2,000 Krath ships. You have only 47. The human made a sound that Mariva's translator identified as laughter. "We faced worse odds." Before Mariva could respond, another signal cut in. The Krath Supreme Commander, Vrekthis, appeared on a split screen. He was massive, even for his species, with mandibles that dripped with venom and compound eyes that glittered with malice. "Unknown vessels," Vrekthis said. "You have entered Krath territory. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed." Commander Sawyer did not even blink. No. Rectus seemed confused by the response. In his experience, species either surrendered or ran. They did not simply refuse. You face the might of the Krath Dominion, Rectus said. We have conquered 63 species. We have never lost a battle. You are outnumbered 40-1. I can count, Sawyer said. The answer is still no. Then you will die. The human smiled again, and Mariva felt a chill run through her body. It was not a smile of happiness. It was the smile of a predator seeing prey. We'll see about that, Sawyer said. Third Fleet, all ships, battle stations. Weapons free. The communication ended. On the sensor display, Mariva watched the human ships move forward, tiny specks against the vast swarm of Krath vessels. It was suicide. It had to be suicide, but the humans did not seem to know that. Aye, Counselor, Tovin said quietly. What do we do? Mariva watched the battle begin to unfold. She watched the human ships accelerate toward the enemy with no hesitation, no fear. She saw their weapons fire, saw Krath ships begin to explode. We watch, she said, and we pray that the legends about Deathworlders are true. On the bridge of the Defiance, Commander Sawyer gave his orders with the calm of a man ordering dinner. Around him, his crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had trained for this. They had been born for this. All ships, attack pattern Delta. Focus fire on their command vessels. Marines, prepare for boarding operations. Lieutenant Commander Greer looked at him with something like admiration. You really think we can win this? Ben Sawyer looked at the enemy fleet on his display. 2,000 ships. Millions of alien warriors. Impossible odds. He thought about Earth. He thought about every predator that ever tried to eat his ancestors. Every disaster that had tried to kill them. Every war that had tried to end them. They don't know what we are, he said. Not yet. But they're about to find out. The first wave of human ships reached the Krath line. Plasma cannons roared. Missiles flew. The battle for Vellum Prime had begun. Supreme Commander Vrectus watched the battle unfold from his command ship, the Devourer. He had led the Krath Dominion's fleets for 30 years. He had crushed rebellions, broken empires, and exterminated species that refused to submit. He was the greatest military mind his people had ever produced. He was not worried about 47 ships. Destroy them, he ordered. All vessels, engage the enemy. The Krath fleet moved like a living thing. 2,000 ships turned toward the human formation, their organic weapon systems charging with deadly energy. Vrectus expected the battle to last perhaps an hour. He expected the strange newcomers to break and run once they saw the true power of the Dominion. He was wrong. The human ships did not run. They accelerated. They dove straight into the heart of the Krath formation, their weapons firing with terrifying precision. Plasma cannons punched through chitinous armor. Kinetic impactors, simple metal slugs fired at incredible speeds, tore holes in ships that had never been breached. In the first 10 minutes, the humans destroyed 40 Krath vessels. They lost none. Vrectus felt something he had not experienced in decades. Confusion. How is this possible? He demanded. Their ships are smaller than ours. His tactical officer, a young female named Cressa, studied the sensor data with growing alarm. Their vessels are more maneuverable, Supreme Commander. And their weapons. The kinetic projectiles are traveling at velocities we have never encountered. Our armor cannot stop them, then overwhelm them with numbers. But the numbers were not helping. The human ships moved through the Krath fleet like water through fingers. They seemed to know where every attack would come from before it happened. Their coordination was perfect. Their tactics unlike anything in Krath records. On the bridge of the Defiance, Commander Sawyer directed the battle with calm efficiency. Carrier group, target their fuel ships. Without fuel, their fleet becomes stationary. Destroy a squadron. Cover the carriers. Cruisers with me. We're going for their command vessel. Lieutenant Commander Greer relayed the orders while monitoring damage reports. Sir, the Hampton took a hit. Minor damage, still combat effective. Tell Captain Murray to pull back and repair. We need every ship. The battle raged across millions of kilometers. Human ships darted between Krath cruisers, too fast to track, too accurate to miss. Their weapons found weak points in alien armor, exploiting gaps that the Krath did not even know existed. But the most terrifying thing, the thing that made Vrecthus's compound eyes widen in something like fear, was the boarding parties. Gunnery Sergeant Rick Palmer led first squad through the breach in the Krath carrier's hull. He was 36 years old, built like a brick wall, with a face that looked like it had been used as a punching bag more than once. He carried a rifle that fired metal slugs at supersonic speeds, and a knife that his grandfather had carried in a war on Earth. Behind him came 11 Marines, men and women who had trained for years in the art of close-quarters combat. They wore powered armor that enhanced their already formidable strength. They breathed recycled air because the atmosphere on Krath ships was toxic to humans. They were not afraid. Contact front, Palmer said as a Krath warrior emerged from the darkness ahead. The creature was 3 meters tall, covered in natural armor, armed with blade-like limbs that could cut through steel. It screamed a challenge and charged. Palmer shot it in the face. The Krath warrior collapsed, its brain destroyed before it could take 3 steps. Palmer stepped over the body and kept moving. That's one, he said. Let's find the rest. What followed was a nightmare for the Krath. The human Marines moved through their ship like ghosts, appearing from shadows, killing with brutal efficiency, vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. The Krath warriors, who'd slaughtered dozens of species in close combat, found themselves outmatched in every way. Humans were stronger than they looked. The gravity on Earth was crushing by galactic standards, and human muscles had evolved to handle it. A single punch from a human Marine could crack Krath chitin. Humans were faster than they should be. Their reflexes, honed by millions of years of surviving predators, let them react before the Krath could complete their attacks, and humans could take damage that would kill most species. Private Susan Cole took a blade through her left arm. She shot her attacker with her right hand, applied a tourniquet, and kept fighting. Corporal Danny Martinez was thrown into a wall hard enough to crack his ribs. He got up, took a painkiller, and killed 3 more Krath before the mission was complete. Most disturbing of all, the humans seemed to enjoy it. Palmer reached the carrier's engine room and planted explosive charges on the main reactor. As his squad retreated to the extraction point, fighting through waves of Krath warriors, he felt something that he would never admit to his therapist. He felt alive. The carrier exploded 15 minutes later, taking 3 nearby Krath ships with it. Palmer and his squad were already back on the Defiance, preparing for the next boarding action. On the Devourer, Supreme Commander Vrecthus received report after report of disasters. Ships destroyed, boarding parties unstoppable, warriors slaughtered in their own corridors. What are these creatures? He demanded. Cressa had been researching while the battle raged. What she found made her voice tremble. They call themselves humans. They come from a world called Earth. It is a Class 12 death world, Supreme Commander. Vrecthus turned to stare at her. That is impossible. No species survives a Class 12 world. They did. Cressa displayed the data on the main screen. Their planet has gravity 20% higher than our homeworld. Their atmosphere contains a gas called oxygen, which is corrosive to most organic tissue. The surface temperature varies from burning heat to freezing cold. The planet is covered in a liquid called water, which is lethal to most galactic species. Vrecthus looked at the data in horror. How do they survive? They evolved to survive, Supreme Commander. They are adapted for a world that is trying to kill them. Their bodies can repair damage that would be fatal to us. Their bones are dense enough to survive their gravity. Their immune systems can fight off diseases that would wipe out entire populations. She paused, her voice dropping. And their history. They have been at war with themselves for their entire existence. They have developed weapons that can destroy cities, poisons that can kill millions, techniques for killing that we cannot comprehend. They are the most dangerous species their planet ever produced. Rekthis looked at the battle display. He had lost 300 ships. The humans had lost 9. They are Deathworlders, he said quietly. True Deathworlders. He made a decision that would have been unthinkable an hour ago. He opened a communication channel to his fleet. All ships, prepare for withdrawal. We are leaving the system. His officers stared at him in shock. The craft Dominion had never retreated. Never. But Rekthis had seen enough. He had faced a new kind of enemy, an enemy that did not fear death, an enemy that had been forged in the fires of an impossible world. He would not sacrifice his fleet against such creatures. Withdraw, he repeated. Now, on the Defiance, Commander Sawyer watched the craft fleet begin to turn away. He allowed himself a small smile. Sir, Lieutenant Commander Greer said, they're running. I noticed. Should we pursue? Sawyer considered the question. They had the momentum. They could chase the craft, destroy more of their ships, perhaps cripple their fleet entirely. But that was not why they had come. Negative, he said. Our mission was to save Vellum Prime. The planet is safe. Let them go. He turned to look at the beautiful world on his display. Its violet oceans and emerald continents now visible through the gaps in the retreating enemy fleet. Contact High Counselor Mariva, he said. Tell him the siege is over. The silence was deafening. High Counselor Mariva stood at her observation window, watching the last of the craft ships disappear into faster-than-light travel. The siege that had lasted 6 months, that had seemed certain to end in the death of her species, was over. The enemy was gone, and in their place floated 47 human ships. Scarred and battered but victorious, Mariva's legs gave out. She collapsed to the floor, her body shaking with emotions she could not name. Behind her, Tovin rushed forward to help, but she waved him away. I need a moment, she said. Just a moment. She had prepared herself for death. She had made peace with the idea that she would watch her world burn, that 3 billion souls would be extinguished because she could not save them. She had accepted this fate, and then the Deathworlders came. On the surface of Vellum Prime, the population had watched the battle through telescope feeds and sensor relays. They had seen the tiny human fleet charge into the massive Krath armada. They had seen ships explode, had tracked the impossible dance of combat across their sky. Most had expected to see the humans destroyed within minutes. Instead, they had watched a miracle. The celebration began slowly. A single voice raised in a song of thanksgiving. A family embracing in the streets. Children laughing as they realized they would live to see tomorrow. Then the joy spread like wildfire, sweeping across cities and continents. Billions of voices raised in relief and wonder. Mariva finally stood, her legs steady again. She looked at Tovin, who was crying openly, his scales flushed with emotion. Contact Commander Sawyer, she said. I need to speak with him. The communication was established within minutes. Sawyer's face appeared on her screen, tired but satisfied. Behind him, his crew was celebrating quietly. Handshakes and embraces shared between people who had just achieved the impossible. High Counselor, Sawyer said, your planet is secure. Mariva searched for words. In her 200 years of life, she had given thousands of speeches, negotiated hundreds of treaties, made countless important statements. Now she could barely speak. "Commander Sawyer," she finally managed, "you have saved my people. 3 billion lives. You came across 400 light years to help strangers you had never met. I do not know how to thank you." Sawyer's expression softened. "You don't need to thank us. It's what we do. But why? Your ships are damaged. Your people are injured. Some of them died for us. Why would you pay such a price for beings you do not know?" Sawyer was quiet for a moment, considering the question. Then he spoke slowly, choosing his words with care. "On Earth, we have a saying, with great power comes great responsibility. We're strong because we had to be. Our planet gave us no choice. But strength means nothing if you don't use it to help people who need help. That's what makes us human." Mariva did not fully understand, but she felt the truth in his words. "Your people are welcome on Vellum Prime," she said. "Forever. Whatever you need, whatever we can provide, it is yours." Sawyer smiled. "Right now, we could use some repairs and rest. My engineering crews have been working nonstop. It will be arranged immediately." The connection ended, and Mariva turned to face her council. They had gathered during the battle, watching the impossible unfold, and now they stood in stunned silence. "We have much to discuss," Mariva said. "But first, we must welcome our saviors properly." Over the next several days, the human fleet moved into orbit around Vellum Prime. Repair facilities that had never seen alien technology struggled to adapt, but the Volanti were quick learners. Human engineers worked alongside Volanti technicians, sharing knowledge, solving problems together. Gunnery Sergeant Rick Palmer found himself on the surface of Vellum Prime, part of a diplomatic mission to meet with local leaders. He felt strange standing in a city that looked like something from a dream, all flowing curves and soft colors, built by beings who had never known violence. A young Volanti approached him, perhaps the equivalent of a child. The little one had bright silver scales and curious eyes that studied Palmer's uniform and weapons with fascination. "Are you a human?" the child asked through a translation device. Palmer knelt down to be at eye level. "I am. You saved us. We helped." The child reached out and touched Palmer's hand, feeling the rough skin, the calluses from years of training and combat. "You are from a death world," the child said. "My teacher told us. She said your planet is very dangerous." Palmer nodded. "It is. Lots of things try to kill us. Were you scared when you fought the Krath?" Palmer thought about the question honestly. He remembered the boarding action, the close combat, the moments when death had been centimeters away. He remembered the adrenaline, the focus, the strange joy of battle. "A little," he said. "Being scared keeps you alive. But we don't let fear stop us from doing what's right." The child considered this for a moment. Then it did something that surprised Palmer. It hugged him. Palmer froze, unsure how to respond. He was a warrior, a killer, a man who had been trained to destroy. But here was this tiny alien being, embracing him like family. Slowly, carefully, he hugged back. On the Defiance, Commander Sawyer received a message from Admiral Holloway. The old man's face appeared on screen, gruff as always, but with a hint of pride in his eyes. "Hell of a job, Commander," Holloway said. "The entire fleet is talking about it. 47 ships against 2,000. You'll be in the history books. The credit goes to my crew, sir. They did the fighting, and you did the leading. Don't sell yourself short." Holloway paused. "We're receiving communications from other species. Lots of them. Seems word is spreading about what happened at Vellum Prime." "What kind of communications?" "All kinds. Some are scared of us, which is fair. Some are curious. And some," Holloway allowed himself a rare smile, "some are asking for help." Sawyer felt the weight of those words. The galaxy was vast, and humanity had just announced its presence in the most dramatic way possible. There would be consequences, complications, challenges they could not foresee, but there would also be opportunities, chances to help others, to make allies, to find their place among the stars. What are our orders, Admiral? For now, remain at Vellum Prime. Help with rebuilding, establish formal diplomatic relations. We're sending Ambassador Morris to handle the political side. Your job is to keep things safe. Understood, sir? Holloway nodded. One more thing, Commander. The Krath Dominion has retreated to their core systems. Our intelligence suggests they're scared. Really scared. They've never lost a battle before, and now they've lost one against a force they outnumbered 40-1. That's good, isn't it? Maybe. Scared enemies can be unpredictable. Stay alert. Holloway's expression softened. But for now, take a moment to appreciate what you've done. You saved 3 billion lives today. That matters. The connection ended. Sawyer sat in his chair, looking at the planet below. Violet oceans. Emerald continents. 3 billion souls who would wake up tomorrow because his fleet had answered a call for help. He thought about Earth, about the home he had left behind. He thought about his parents, who had taught him right from wrong. He thought about his sister, who had cried when he first left for space. He wondered what they would think if they could see him now. Commander, Lieutenant Commander Greer said, interrupting his thoughts. The Volanthi are throwing some kind of celebration on the surface. High Counselor Mariva has requested your presence. Sawyer stood, straightening his uniform. Then let's not keep her waiting. As he walked to the shuttle bay, he passed crew members who nodded and smiled. They had done something incredible together, something that would be remembered long after they were gone. They had saved the world, and they were just getting started. 1 month had passed since the Battle of Vellum Prime. High Counselor Mariva stood in her council chamber, watching the human delegation enter. Commander Sawyer led the group, his uniform now decorated with a Volanthi Medal of Honor. Behind him came Ambassador Linda Morris, a composed woman in her 50s with gray-streaked hair and eyes that missed nothing. Several Marines followed as honor guard, including Gunnery Sergeant Rick Palmer, whose presence still made some council members visibly nervous. The chamber was full of dignitaries from across the Volanthi collective. Representatives from all 7 member species had gathered to witness this historic moment. The formal establishment of relations between their civilization and the impossible beings from Earth. Mariva stepped forward to greet her guests. She had spent the past month learning everything she could about humans, and each new piece of information had left her more amazed than the last. They breathed oxygen, a gas that would burn Volanthi lungs. They drank water, a substance that dissolved organic tissue. They ate the flesh of other creatures, something that horrified the herbivorous Volanthi. Their bodies operated at temperatures that would cook her people alive. They had pain responses that told them when to stop. But they could ignore those responses through pure willpower. They were, in every sense, creatures from a nightmare world, and yet they had come to save strangers. Ambassador Morris. Commander Sawyer, Mariva said, welcome to the Council of the Collective. Ambassador Morris bowed her head respectfully. High Counselor, we are honored to be here. The people of Earth extend their warmest greetings to the Volanthi Collective. The formal proceedings began. Treaties were signed, trade agreements established, diplomatic protocols set in place. It was the kind of work that Mariva usually found tedious, but today she embraced every moment. Every signature represented a future, a tomorrow that would not have existed without human intervention. When the official business was concluded, Mariva asked for a private moment with the human delegation. The council chamber emptied until only she, the humans, and Tovin remained. I must ask you something, Mariva said, her voice softer now. It has troubled me since you arrived. Ambassador Morris nodded. Ask whatever you wish. Your species is terrifying. I do not say this as an insult, but as a fact. Your world is a nightmare. Your history is filled with war and violence. You have weapons that can destroy entire cities, poisons that can wipe out populations. And yet, you came to save beings you had never met, risking your lives for strangers. She looked at each human in turn, searching their faces for understanding. Why? I have read your philosophy, your literature, your religious texts. I still do not understand. How can a species born in such violence show such kindness? Ambassador Morris glanced at Commander Sawyer, who gave a slight nod. Then she looked at Gunnery Sergeant Palmer. Sergeant, would you care to answer the High Counselor's question? Palmer stepped forward, momentarily surprised. He was a fighter, not a diplomat. But he had been thinking about this very question since that young Volante child had hugged him. High Counselor, he said, if I may? Mariva gestured for him to continue. Palmer took a deep breath. You're right about where we come from. Earth tried to kill us for 4 billion years. Everything on our planet evolved to survive, and that means everything evolved to fight. We learned to be strong because we had no choice. We learned to be dangerous because being weak meant being dead. He paused, gathering his thoughts. But we also learned something else. We learned that working together made us stronger. We learned that protecting each other, even strangers, was how the group survived. On Earth, tribes that helped each other lived longer than tribes that didn't. Compassion isn't weakness. Compassion is evolution. Mariva listened intently. When we got your distress signal, Palmer continued, we didn't see aliens. We saw people in trouble, people who needed help. And somewhere in our DNA, in the deepest part of what makes us human, we knew we had to answer. Not because we would gain anything, not because we had to, but because that's who we are. He met Mariva's eyes directly. We're dangerous, yes. We're predators. We're killers. But we're also protectors. We choose who we fight for. And when we choose, we don't stop until the fight is won. The chamber was silent. Mariva felt tears forming in her eyes, something that had never happened in a diplomatic meeting before. You choose to fight for others, she said slowly, even though you could use your strength for conquest, for domination. You choose protection over power. Palmer nodded. That's what makes us human, ma'am. Not the fighting, the choosing. Mariva stepped forward. She had learned about human customs during her research, and now she put that knowledge to use. She extended her hand. Palmer looked surprised, then moved. He took her hand gently, careful not to grip too hard. Welcome to the galaxy, Mariva said. We are glad you are here. Commander Sawyer stepped forward to stand beside Palmer. So are we. In the months that followed, the story of the Battle of Vellum Prime spread across the galaxy. Species that had lived in terror of the Krath Dominion took notice. The empire that had conquered 63 civilizations had fled from 47 ships. The invincible had been defeated. More importantly, they had been defeated by beings who asked for nothing in return. Beings who had crossed the stars simply because someone needed help. The Krath retreated to their core systems and closed their borders. They had never faced an enemy like humanity, and they were not eager to face them again. Their empire, built on the certainty of their own superiority, had been shaken to its foundations. Other species began reaching out to Earth. Some came with requests for protection. Their worlds threatened by pirates or rival powers. Some came with offers of trade, eager to establish relationships with the powerful newcomers. Some came simply out of curiosity, wanting to meet the beings who had done the impossible. Humanity welcomed them all. Admiral Holloway, watching the diplomatic traffic flow into Earth's communication networks, allowed himself a rare moment of optimism. For all of human history, people had wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew the answer, and they were finding their place among the stars. On Vellum Prime, High Counselor Mariva commissioned a monument to the human fleet. It stood in the capital city, a simple pillar of crystal with the names of every human who had fought in the battle. At its base was an inscription in both Volanti script and English. They came from a world of death and brought us life. They came as strangers and left as family. Remember them. And in the schools of the Volanti Collective, a new saying emerged among the younger generation. A phrase borrowed from human culture that captured something profound about their mysterious saviors. When the darkness comes, call the Deathworlders. They will bring the dawn. Young Volanti children would grow up with stories of the strange beings from Earth. They would learn about humans who breathed poison and drank acid, who survived injuries that would kill any other species, who had fought their own planet for survival and won. They would learn that these terrifying creatures, these apex predators from a nightmare world, had crossed the galaxy to save people they had never met. And they would understand the most important lesson of all. True strength is not measured by the ability to destroy. True strength is measured by the choice to protect. The humans understood this. They had always understood it, even before they reached the stars. It was written in their history, in their stories, in the very structure of their civilization. Now the galaxy understood it too, and nothing would ever be the same. On the bridge of the Defiance, Commander Ben Sawyer looked out at the stars and thought about the future. There would be more battles ahead, more challenges, more moments when impossible odds would face impossible courage. But for now, he was content. He had done what humans had always done. He had answered a call for help, and somewhere in the vast darkness of space, on 1,000 different worlds, other beings were watching, waiting, hoping. The Deathworlders had arrived, and they had brought the dawn.